Welcome everyone to this sacred conversation. I'm Chantal, holistic business counselor or holistic counselor, just wanting to bring all these beautiful women together and these lovely conversations we don't talk about. To give you hope to know that there's such an amazing life that you can have, particularly if you've experienced trauma or something that's been traumatic for you, but it doesn't feel like for anyone else. Welcome, Tia. Tia and I have had our own conversation on her Time Marker Legacy podcast? Is it?
It's Empowering Time Markers. My company name is Time Marker Legacy.
Thank you. And I didn't get that. Anyhow, don't worry about that. That's me going down the rabbit hole. I should have got it right from the word and getting it all perfect. So we might be able to talk about that because that's part of trauma. I'm really excited to have Tia here because we've just got to know each other as well. And this is, for me, I love, social media and how we can have these conversations without really even knowing each other, isn't it? It's sort of like something just gels and it connects. And today we are going to start with medical trauma and then see where it leads us. So if anyone feels triggered, reach out. Just know you're not alone. Leave any comments that you wish to contribute to. Let's get these conversations happening. So welcome, Tia.
Well, thank you so much for having me, and I look forward to having this conversation with you.
Thank you.
Do you want me to start where?
Absolutely. Just start, because we were leaving it a bit loose. We mentioned medical trauma, and this is why I just want you to start going wherever you need to go, and I'll just be there. As I said, we're just holding a conversation. That's actually yours.
All right. Well, so when I was 19, I started to feel really tired, like all the time. I was only up for about 4 hours a day, and I was going to the doctor, as you do, and they were like, I can't find anything. They tested me for HIV, for Lyme disease, for all kinds of things, and they were saying it must be in your head. We are not seeing anything. A few months later, I had an eye appointment, and the eye doctor found that I had some blind spots, like some scar tissue in my eye. And he said, oh, this looks like toxoplasmosis. I'm going to send you to a specialist right away. And I had all this stuff. So I did have toxoplasmosis, and it leaves lesions in your body and you can go blind. And I'm centrally blind in my left eye. And that was the start of me not trusting medical doctors, because that was the first time I was told it must be in your head. Cut to a few years later, I had some stomach issues, and again went through testing, and they said, it must be in your head. You must have anxiety, something. It must be in your brain. And I was like, no. And I lost more and more trust. And then, so that was when I was 19. And then in my 20s, I went to the emergency room once, and they said, it's anxiety. It's anxiety. Here's some pills, but I didn't take them because I didn't trust them. And in my early 40s, I started having severe stomach pain, and it led to blood. And I immediately was like, this is not in my head. Like, I need to see a doctor immediately. So even I had my husband go with me, and I was 41 at the time. And I said, please do not tell me this is in my head. I cannot make myself bleed because I have anxiety. Like, don't do that to me. And literally 10 minutes later, they were like, it's probably just this. And like, do you have anxiety? I'm like, yes, because something is wrong. Like, I know something is wrong. So I ended up having ulcerative colitis, and I went through a near-death experience with that. And because I had built such a distrust, I was kind of torturing myself longer because I didn't trust them. And then 2 years later, in 2021, I got really, really ill and had to go to the emergency room and had a hospital stay. And I had to have a filter put in my neck while you're awake. I had to coach myself because I had all that like distrust. And even to go to the emergency room, I was so bad to go to the emergency room because I was like, I don't trust them. I don't know what they're going to do to me. And what ended up happening, because I didn't, and I waited too long, is I got a blood clot from my belly button all the way down my left leg because I was bedridden for a couple months and really, really sick. And because of that, I had to go through a lot more medical stuff. At that point, I was so desperate that I was really coaching myself of, if it was me as a practitioner, how would I treat the patient? And I would treat them as if they were my own child, if they were my own family member. And I don't want to cry, but like it made me realize that like these are people, and let them love me like I would love them. So I went into the conversations a little bit differently than like, oh my gosh, you're just trying to get my money. You're just like, I had all these things in my head. And when I finally let that go and was like, you know what, please love me. And I would say little things like, I am loved, I am safe, you know, the normal little affirmations. And it went great. I had a great experience. It doesn't mean that it doesn't still trigger me. If I know something is wrong, I am still like, oh no, like this could be really bad. But now I know kind of how to talk to myself about like letting people love me.
Love that. I just feel so let people love me. I sitting here really honoring you sharing this experience, and very touched by your ability and the tears, because this is what it's about. We still apologize for tears. You've had a big experience for a long time, and I think it must be in your head. How many times do we hear this with women? And I'm going to say with women, it's in your head. No,
Mm-hmm.
you know your body. So what they're doing is, like you said, taking away your knowledge of your body, your knowing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it
Absolutely.
was something serious that you then had to deal with, not them, because they've gone. They've washed their hands.
Right. Right.
You
So
know,
you,
and
I mean, I'm a huge, like, you have to advocate for yourself. Yes.
yes, that's right. Exactly. And if you think about it, how many people, I'm going to say people too, but women may not have that ability
Mm-hmm.
to be able to do that because of where they are at that point in time.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And you
Mm-hmm.
had the courage, the strength, and to have the ability. I really, really want you to honor this and everyone to hear, to have that ability to be able to turn that around. Please love me. That is courage.
Yeah.
And again, this is why I have these conversations to show us. So you've given not only me, but I would like to believe our listeners that hope that you can do it too. I can do that too, because I've had a similar, well, an experience too, an out of body. So like that might be another conversation, near death after a huge anesthetic. Mine was
Mm-hmm.
for different reasons, and I'd chosen to have the operation, but it traumatized me so much. Anyhow, I did leave my body and da da da. And they did, of course, nurse believed me, but the others didn't. So when I had to go in for something really minor,
Mm-hmm.
I've had counseling, I had psychology, I had
Yep.
everything. I was going to only be under for 6 minutes. And I even met this surgeon first because it was just something going down into my gut. And I met the anaesthetist. They were fine, all women. I walked into the operating room and I literally, the biggest panic attack you could possibly think of. I'm not going to do this. I'm walking out. I can't, and I was blubbering. Here I am in my, early 50s.
Yeah.
There's like this child. I don't want to take this away from you, but it's just that. And the women were great. And we had a giggle just because we all know men were there. And the next minute I was under and I was out and I had a great experience.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So it
Mm-hmm.
gave me a bit of trust again.
Yeah.
So tell me how, because coming back, still get triggered. So you see, again, I call it trauma. So you're calling it medical trauma. So how do you deal with it or share it with people to give them to know that this is real?
Um, well, I say it.
Yeah, that's
Like,
right.
I've been through a lot. I know my body inside and out. I know when something is wrong. I would not show up unless I know. Like, this is probably life or death. Like, I don't just come to the doctor for fun. I'm not looking for pain meds. I'm not like, because sometimes they treat you like you're doing
Yes.
that. And
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't want anything. Please do not give me anything unless like it's absolutely necessary. And still, it's just hard because you don't know until you get there, like who you're talking to, right? So you can beforehand, how anxiety works and stuff like that, and trauma is that you start building a story in your head.
Mm.
And that will either block you from going, stop you from going, like,
Yeah.
or having a bad experience before you even have the experience. So it's sort of like knowing how and practicing not living in the future. Just like
Yes.
right now, this is what I'm doing, kind of like the mindfulness of, okay, I made the decision, I'm going. Okay, I'm sitting in the car. Okay, I'm just doing one step at a time and not getting ahead of yourself. So, and I have friends because they've known a lot of things that I've gone through. So they'll contact me and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm really scared. I have to have this test done or whatever. And I coach them through it. Like, right now, you're just sitting talking with me. You don't have to feel anything that's going on. And then you're going to go get the test. You don't have the results. You're going to be fine. In that moment, everything is okay. You're just taking a test. You don't have to think about the outcome yet. So just doing those little steps at a time, that really helps. And when I say advocate for yourself, it's when you do encounter somebody that you do not trust, you know, in your gut, it's okay to say, I'm not okay with this, because you're paying them. Like, they're working for you. And that is a huge, like, I am not afraid to say no. Nope. I'm gonna do it another time. Like, I hate putting myself in that predicament because, it's inherently like, I want to make other people feel comfortable and I want people to like me and like all of that, right? And I have to be nice because it's almost like you hear it in your head, like I'm insulting them. So, and I'm not a rude person. So that's a really hard struggle, right? But here's the thing. If there's already a mismatch of that and you didn't go into that with that, then they did that. And it's okay. Like, you didn't just go in like, blah, right?
Yes. Oh, that is such a great point and such a great reframe. Thank you, Tia.
Mhm.
And what I noticed as you were talking, your voice changed, your body changed. There's so much love as you spoke just now. And this is coming back to, please have love. I'm loved, I'm safe. And I just felt that that is what you now are giving your friends and anyone who's listening here. Even if someone just takes that moment of feeling that, because I felt that really powerfully.
Mm.
And I think the other thing you made a really good point is the mindfulness. That's what I do step by step. And above all, because again, we don't know how to say no, all those things, people pleasing, and they're the big, they're the ones going to save us or whatever. I'm using grandiose words here, but that's somehow you can say no. And in fact, you can walk out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Takes courage. You can walk out. But again, we don't because we feel beholden,
Mm-hmm.
And I know, and I agree with you, I get anxious because I feel for me, again, gross generalization, a lot of them, well, I'm going to say most of them, even the women, don't understand energy, don't understand vulnerability and sensitivity and trauma that you might be already experiencing that's actually not part of this, but becomes part of it.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. Not trick, but what I try to do too with whomever I encounter, a nurse, doctor, whomever, is I try to humanize them and humanize me
Yes.
and so I read people. And I know this, like, one thing I asked I was talking to the surgeon, and I don't know how I brought this up, but it was something to do with flowers. And he grabbed his ring finger and twisted his ring finger without, he doesn't know he's doing that. And I said, what's your wife's favorite flower? Because we were talking about flowers, and it was whatever, like a tulip. Oh, I know what it was. So this, I had a filter put in, and it was a tulip. And that's what it's called, because it's the shape of a tulip. And I was like, oh, I had those at my wedding. And he touched his ring because it reminded him of his wife. You do that subconsciously. So I knew that he had love for his wife in that moment, and that I was somebody's wife. So we could connect on that. So he would take care of me as much as he would take care of his own. So like, that's a,
Yes.
that's how I try to connect.
That is a really amazing, because you've just made me aware when my partner went in a few years ago with, or life giving, I call it life giving, not just life saving surgery. And he, a big man, you know, young man,
Yeah.
and good at, you know, he was well known in he's well known in his field and highly respected. But anyhow, you know, you're scared, you whatever. But you know what? He did the same, because we thought, oh, you know, big across the table, what's he going to be like? Because my partner was very anxious, never having been in hospital, blah blah blah, all that sort of stuff. But you're right, when we weren't sure, he leant over the table, put his hand on my partner's hand and said, if you were my father, and I won't quite say what he said, I'd kick your to do this. And then,
Yeah.
exactly right, I've just gone goosey. Then we just went, we know we're fine.
Yeah.
And again, I didn't even realize at the time that now you're giving me that awareness.
Mm-hmm.
All he had to do was put his hand on across the table, and that was it. Then we knew we were safe.
Yeah.
And he was
Yeah.
actually brilliant. He had actually, it was again bedside manner, you often wonder. He came in, he focused, he did his job, walked out. He was quick, but he was right there in that moment,
Mm-hmm.
which is another important thing. You don't think, oh God, he's
Yeah.
got to go and do another 10,000, you know, whatever.
Right. Right.
So I think what you're talking about is we need to talk about this. How can we advocate for ourselves and others to go, actually, no, this is not okay. Please believe me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I got rid of the one that was, I literally said, do not bring up anxiety. I'm not making this up. This isn't in my head. I have blood coming out of me. Like, this is not normal. And as soon as she did that, I was like, mm-mm. I looked at my husband, she walked out, and I was like, no, like, this is not going to go well. And in fact, I was scared out of my mind because I didn't know at the time what was wrong with me. And that facility had multiple doctors. She still had my case until I got diagnosed, but then immediately after, I was like, I don't want to see her again. We don't mesh well. And that's
Yes,
okay.
that's it. That's it.
Yeah. Like, we're not hearing each other, and that, like, sometimes that happens. She might be a brilliant person for somebody else. And to me, it was actually a realization, like, she was like me, like how we communicated, but it comes across awful. Like, when you're talking to yourself, I was like, I need somebody else that can comfort me and not be so logical, because sometimes I'm overly logical when it comes to that. And I was like, I can't handle that right now.
You know, another point you've just made there, which I agree with, it's sometimes there are mismatches,
Mm-hmm.
and there's no right or wrong. It's not them. It's just, and that is another thing, to how to really honor that and go, actually, no, because I know for me, working with energy, that energy will be taken into all the procedures you have, all
Yeah.
the care you have. And because a lot of people don't think that, when the medical profession don't understand that.
Yeah. I think there should be better classes and training and all of that.
Yeah.
So,
And
and
have
some
people,
do and some don't.
yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, don't. And I think it's like having, when people are prepared to share, have someone like yourself actually go into one of their classes and say, this is actually real. So they see patients, the other side, because I know when I was having this big operation, I knew that sometimes they talk over you and they can talk, or they have, loud music or like, whatever. So I actually asked them, I gave the anesthetist, and I'm pretty sure, well, I'm hoping he did it because obviously I wouldn't know. I actually gave him a CD of, I really used to like Nigel Kennedy's, and I love the Four Seasons by Vivaldi. And so I asked him to play that while I was under. I'm
That's
assuming
awesome.
he did, because when I came out and I came to, he said, oh, here's your CD back. Thank you.
Nice.
So again, it's just, if you don't ask, you don't get. We get scared, we get thing. We go, no, in a way, it's like we go back into it like a child. They become the parent,
Mm-hmm.
Suddenly we can't ask for things. Actually, we can.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah, I for some reason I want to bring this up. So when I had to get the filter put out, it was actually a different doctor. And at this point, I wasn't scared anymore. I was just like, because I had already had it done, and that original doctor was in the room, so I felt safe. But the guy that had to take it out, he missed some steps. Whatever, it's fine. Everything is fine. But in the middle of it, I knew, and I was trying to talk to him while he was doing it. I was like, I hope you played video games as a kid, because they have to go in with like a little thing. I was like, did you play video games to train for this? Like, just trying to make a joke to like make him like, I'm still a person under here, because he was getting a little rough. Because they're one track mind. And that like kind of brought him in like, oh yeah, and like humanizing. You can't do that in every surgery. This just happens to be one that I was awake for.
Yeah.
So I could. And that's sort of my way of trying to, I guess, get control of the situation, like having some kind of say in what's going on.
And I like that. Having some control, because a lot of it is out of your control, like you said, and more importantly, have some say.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And again, that takes courage. That takes a lot of awareness and a lot of healing, because I'm finding my voice more and more. And this conversation is making me even more aware how we need to really talk, how we need to share, how we need to do this. Yeah. And in so many different areas, yet we don't, we walk away really, literally, and people don't realize you actually walk away traumatized.
Yeah.
But again, we gloss over it, we put it aside. Now, traumatized, what I'm learning is also with trauma, you can be traumatized that doesn't necessarily lead to long-term repercussions. We need to be, so there's a difference. So you were traumatized, and that can be for however long. It might be for a little while, a couple of weeks. It's when it goes longer. So anyone who feels that, do go and get to a GP you trust or someone you trust to make sure. Because if it lasts for too long, then it could be that you've still going through trauma. Yeah. And like you said, in a way, you keep you kept getting triggered, and you're still getting triggered because trauma lives in our body. This lives in our body.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
And you're saying like you now know what you need to do when you get that. So, and again, please, anyone listening, don't ever underestimate your feeling and your knowing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
And say no. Pardon? Yes, that's it. Love yourself first. And again, that takes time to love yourself first. And do change. It's like when you go to a counselor or a psychologist as well, or a GP, you change.
Yeah.
I used to be able to change. I used to think, I can't do that. Think if it's within the same practice.
Yeah.
Why?
Why not? Why not?
Exactly. Why not? So I think this is really important. So how do you feel now? So where are you at? Like, let's talk a little bit about what you do, because I love how you've segued from photography and into conversations. How has this supported you in what you've gone through, and how you're supporting other women?
So I love women. I mean, I love everybody, right? So as a photographer, I love capturing moments that you'll never get back. So that's what I love about photography. the reason why I love conversations on podcasts and things like this is that it's like taking a moment in time and freezing it, that more people can experience and see the beauty in the conversation that we're having. So to me, my photography business is called Time Marker Legacy. So I was like marking this time in your life. And my podcast is Empowering Time Markers, because I look at us all as time markers. We're marking this time that we're alive right now. And what are you doing with that? So sharing your stories that will outlive us. That's the legacy part. Like how many ripples can we make with this life that we live? How many ripples can we make and change lives for the better in this one moment? How many? And then how many are they going to change? Like, it's amazing to me. Like, I'll never know, but in my heart, I feel like I'm making a better world for everybody.
And I think this is coming, I agree with you, and I love it. I've just gone goosey because I loved our conversation. It was just so powerful that I had with you. But I think, like you said, this is coming back to what you're talking about with the medical trauma, and that you don't need, it's like, again, it's that knowing, and everything else is just, it's happening. And I love that. So that's coming back to you trusting what you are doing is having this effect because you're coming from that place of love.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You're holding space. I love that time marking. You're holding. So this is what we're doing even right now. We're holding this moment in time. Love it.
Yep. That's amazing.
Yeah, it is. And if, like, you did it for me, I'm now doing it for you, then someone else watching this can do it for exactly. That's how we ended our last one. Remember, we did that. We went like this.
Yep.
And then from here, from my channel and your channel, someone else will do it. Someone else will do it. And I love that.
Yeah.
And it is a knowing that someone, however many, will see this.
Yeah. I love people, even if I don't know you. And that's how I treat people. And the golden rule, treat people how you want to be treated. I don't think about that, but it does come up because that's what we kind of grow up thinking and saying. But truly, when I'm having a conversation with somebody or interviewing somebody or whatever, I'm looking at them as if they were my child or my family member or my best friend, what would I do for them? How would I listen to them? How would I support them? And I want them to succeed. Even if I don't, like, even with my own children, like, we don't agree on everything. I don't have to agree with everything you say, right? To still unconditionally love you and want to see you do amazing things in this world. So every time I meet somebody, that's what I am thinking. The doctors, like, that's what I want you to succeed with me for sure, because you're working on me. But like, for real, like, if I'm wishing nothing but the best for you, maybe that's what they're doing for me too.
I'm going to take a breath. I love that. It's just a loving, kind, gentle, compassionate way, full of empathy. And I agree with you. I think it's about acceptance. Doesn't mean, and I mean, it can be sometimes you might not like the person, you can love them, but it's about just acceptance, as you said. And how can we, and I've just written a post about rumbling with vulnerability. I love Brené Brown's work because that is about what it's about how can we have discussions where it's you both perhaps oppose or there's conflict, and then how can you be there to go, okay, this is how it is, but we love each other, we can hold each other in our differences, and then see how we can come together without the control or trying to make you've got to agree with me, or
Yeah. Well, I think there's been a huge shift in the last decade of what we're seeing in society and on TV and in the world of like, you have to be perfect all the time, or like, we have to agree or I'm canceling you or whatever.
Yes.
So I'm trying to create a wave of like, no, you don't. Like, why can't we just love each other? And that's not all it takes, but like, really, like you said, acceptance of people because even twins, like if you're raised in the same household, you don't do the same thing. Like you can have a different experience. And this is what, I don't know if I ever told you this, the car analogy. So
Awesome.
how I look at families is like the size of the car. So like we have two kids and two adults, and we're in a car, and when something tragic happens, like when I got sick, it's like getting in a car accident. And every person has a different perspective of what happened. And every person is injured in a different way because of that incident. So that's how I view families. And every time something happens, it's a car accident, whether it's huge or little, but everyone has a different point of view of what happened. And that's okay. Like it still happened to everyone in the car. And just holding space that like, well, somebody broke a finger and somebody lost a leg or whatever, like, so that's how I look at it, and not holding judgment. Well, I had this, and like, that push and pull thing. It's like this competition that you don't need to have.
Yeah. And look, and I love that. And oh, thank you again. I think it's beautiful because again, this is coming back to what we're talking about with trauma. And again, something I learned, like you said, that car accident, it's also what each person is bringing into that moment that we also need to consider, because that's something I learned when my car accident was minor in the scheme of things, even though I had a terrible whiplash, but I triggered into complex PTSD. But I felt shame because it wasn't a bad accident. But I had to unravel that and learn through the psychologist and then my own training and reading, and like big T's, little T's. It's what you bring into that moment. That's why it's so personal, like you're saying. And even though, as you said, there's 4 of you in that accident, same accident, but different reactions, different responses. And again, this is why we need these conversations to learn to understand why. I don't know if it's why did you react that way, and the same for, like your husband or whoever would reacted a different way? Well, because you're bringing different personalities, experiences into that moment.
Mm-hmm.
And it's
Well,
that
and
moment.
I would say, what's the definition of bad? Because
Yes,
the
yes,
outcome of what
yes.
happened to you and what you've had to deal with, I would describe that as that was a pretty bad accident.
Yeah. Yes, yes. Yeah,
Like that's a
yeah,
pretty bad accident.
yeah, yeah. And it was, but it took me a long, yes, exactly. But again, we compare, or we're told it wasn't as bad as, something else. So exactly right. So thank you. And it was a bad accident, but it took me a long time to, like you said, this is why I keep coming back. These conversations are important because again, I love your analogy, because it's like, again, what is bad, what is good, what is whatever it is. And each individual person, it's how can we see each individual person for who they are? And something I'd like to add to that is, I can still love a person, but doesn't mean I like them, but I can still accept and hold them in that space if that's their experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think the more we can do that, and I agree with you, the last 10 years, I mean, how we get cancelled out and how this has happened in our world, it just blows me away that you can't have a different opinion or just state how you feel without being, bullied, bombarded, or whatever else you want to do. It's just, I find it quite mind-blowing.
Yeah, it's kind of ironic,
Mm,
actually,
mm,
just because of the way the movement started and the reasoning and the of why they said that this was starting was because no one had the right before. But I'm like, but I feel everyone doesn't have it anymore. Like
yes,
it like swung in a different way than
yes.
anticipated. But that's how they say, all good intentions lead to the road to hell, or something like that.
Yes, yes, yes. And what I'm wondering is, as we're sort of coming to the close, is whether sometimes you've got to go swing one way to the other to come back. Sometimes they do that. You've got to go from one extreme to the other to then find a middle ground. Let's hope there's a middle ground that, comes
Right.
eventually, or
Well,
some sort of.
I'm
Okay.
trying to be a little bit of that movement of like, well, instead of so much hate, how about we have love and respect for each other?
Yeah.
Like just hold space.
I agree. And I'd like to say that you're not just trying, you are. You are actually, you are doing that, Tia, by being here. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, thank you for holding space for me.
Like you, I love it too. I love it. It just gives me such pleasure. What would you like to sort of end on? So something like how they contact you, as I said before, we'll have it in the description. So what would you like to end on and leave this conversation?
It's open-ended. So you can find me on social medias. I have a lot of different things going on. So if you just go to my website, it's timemarkerlegacy.com. All of my links are on there, and that's how you can find me.
Okay, good.
I have a new episode every Tuesday morning, East Coast time at 7 a.m. on all platforms for podcasts. I have amazing people on that tell amazing stories of triumph or an inspiration in what they're doing in the world and how they've come to be doing what they're doing. So, and it's amazing. I love hearing people's stories because, as you can see, you can look at me and you have no idea what I've been through. You can look at you and you can't see what somebody has experienced. You're just seeing them right in this moment. So the only way we can show people is to speak about it, you know, and just hold space for other people to tell their stories.
Thank you. And you just do that so beautifully. Yeah. Thank you. And it's that moment in time that you are offering. I love it. Thank you so much, Tia, for being here. I really appreciate it. Everyone who's watched, do leave comments. Again, if something triggers you, please get support. Now, I'm in Australia, so we have Lifeline 1300 or 1114. But reach out, talk to someone, because you're not alone. You are loved. Sometimes you just don't feel it, but just know you are. Thank you, everyone. And thank you, Tia. That's right.